probably. They were collecting. Thank you.
I remember seeing something.
You ready whenever? Okay. Handhelds, I know. Go figure.
Well, I'll look it up. I'm just going to go.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm really glad to see so many people here today. Very important. Good job. Good job. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Learning Commons because I think you're going to be surprised. It's not what you think it is. And if you don't know at all what it is, it's really not what you think it is. Here's a definition that we found that I really like, and this is from University of Pennsylvania. A learning commons is built around the notion of connectivity. That's a really major point as far as what a learning commons is. It's about connecting to other learning environments, to global conversations, to the world's knowledge sources, and to informal and formal spaces and ways of learning. Now, the reason I say that may not be what you were thinking is when the Learning Commons was first designed here at Fort Hays, it was heavily reliant on the technology. It's not anymore. The reason that a lot of the technology is still what I do is because that happens to be my area of expertise. So I want to talk a little bit about how the Learning Commons here is going to evolve, and I'm going to take each one of these pieces and I'm going to show you what we're doing already and then kind of open a dialogue for what we could be doing. So the first one is connections to other learning environments. This is university partnerships. We already have partnerships with the Writing Center, who's right upstairs here, Makerspace, the Center for New Media. We've been working with them. They're making a 3D model of the library. The Tiger Food Exchange, Center for Language and Culture, which is in the basement that I hope to be doing a little bit more with. They won't take me on their trips, I don't think, but I still think maybe we can display some of their pictures. The Center for Civic Leadership, we've been working with them through partnerships for the last 5 years at least. The American Democracy Project. And think about it, is there a place for a partnership between your area? Melissa and I have kind of worked together before because she can't be everywhere. And I do a lot of the social media stuff for the library, and I've learned a lot from her. And I just try to she takes much better pictures than I do, believe it or not. And so I like some of the pictures she takes when she goes places. So I've learned a lot more about actually using it for marketing from Melissa. The next, so that's number 10. 9, connections to global conversations. We have the ability here to facilitate conversations via Skype, Google Hangout, FaceTime. We've got iPads. You can FaceTime with someone. I had a student worker from France who worked with me, and I remember he was so excited one day. He was working and he dialed up his mom on FaceTime. He was able to talk to her face to face, and it didn't cost him anything. And that was really exciting. We also have a large flat screen TV on 133. We've done Skype conversations using that and Google Hangout conversations. We could do that for a small group of students. We could do that for professors. The Times Talks, they're hosted here. And we love getting people to come in and listen and discuss various ideas. But I don't know if you knew that we have a research guide. It's fhsuguides.edu, fhsu.edu/timestalk, where we go through and we add resources that we have here in the library about the topic that was discussed. So you can use those in your classroom and keep the discussion going. We also post the video from the Times Talk there. Global Leadership, we've worked with the Global Leadership projects somewhat. I'd like to see that expand. We also host the Swipe Out Hunger event. So there are a lot of partnerships that we can do that will help our students here at Fort Hays become world ready by taking part in some of the global conversations. The next one, connections to the world's knowledge sources. We're in a library. You can have your own personal librarian. Well, you might get a different librarian each time, but I think that if we ask some of our librarians, you've got people that come to you and they just keep coming back to you because they become familiar. One thing that our dean has talked about is, what about a librarian to help with the first year experience? So that instead of students waiting until they're sophomores or juniors to come into the library and realize what we have here, they can start making that connection with the librarian right from the beginning. We have the New York Times access that Jennifer talked about in one of her early Forsyth Friday Forums, and that is a great resource. And then we've got all of our digital videos, we've got databases, all of our library collections that we can help students connect with. Like I said, it's all about connections and partnerships. Informal and formal spaces. We have group study spaces, we have collaborative learning spaces. On the first floor of Forsyth Library, it's not a quiet floor. It's a conversational level speaking floor. It's also a be respectful to your neighbor floor. So in other words, if you get a phone call and you're talking really loud, you might want to think about going out in the lobby. You'd think that'd be common sense, but we've got places that groups can get together and work, various places here on the first floor. We'll be adding more. We've got the computer pods, the computer workstation pods that are together, clusters, power outlets for charging equipment. We hope to add some more of that because that's something that our students really need. In fact, we have power strips at the one-stop desk that students can check out and use. And movable furniture. If you look, our tables and chairs that are new are on wheels. We can move them around, which really helps when we need to set up something way at the other end of the library. So let's go through first what those first few. Number 10 was connections to other learning environments, university partnerships. Number 9, connections to global conversations. Number 8, connections to the world's knowledge sources. 7, informal and formal spaces. Well, I want to show you what some of those look like. On the right is a group of students on our free pizza day during finals week. We always have about 200 students that we feed, and they're excited for it. And what's really cool is they all say thank you when they're done. And Dr. Martin even came over this year and greeted some of them. The Horizon Report for Higher Ed came out Wednesday of last week. And I was just so anxious for it because I like to see what they say are the trends. They say a trend for adoption in 1 year or less is bring your own device. So when you're talking redesigning learning spaces like the library, like the Learning Commons, we have to think about that charging issue. We have to think about what kind of support can we give them. In other words, we give more support on an ed tech perspective, on applications, on things like Word, iMovie, VoiceThread, things like that, not the nuts and bolts of how to make a computer work. So I think we're on the way to being prepared for that. One thing we noticed is we did a survey, kind of an informal survey, and a lot of our students say they bring their own computer with them in their bag, but then they use ours. I maintain, and it'll be interesting in the next few years to see if I'm right or not, I think a lot of it's because if you want to print, you have to be on one of our computers. Otherwise, I think we'd see more use of their own devices. But what does this mean for teachers in the classroom? Another adoption that they give 2 to 3 years is maker spaces. We've already got one. But what I'd like to see is more of the makerspace stuff being connected with college students. I see a lot of younger students down there, but I'm going to start going down there a little more often, and I want to see what kinds of things we can do for maybe up here using that 3D printer or using some other of the makerspace items. Key trends for the next year to 2, redesigning of learning spaces. We're in the middle of that right now. We're in the middle of doing some periodicals weeding, of moving some things around, so we'll have more space to create learning spaces for students. And some of the challenges, blending informal and formal learning. We do that already to a certain extent, but that's more of a classroom thing. And then really working on digital literacy skills, and that's kind of where I come in. This is a picture of some students here studying with one of our movable whiteboards, and they've become really quite popular. In fact, I try to catch students on them so I can go over and take a picture of them using them. One of the pictures that our dean found was using those whiteboards hooked together to make little, like to define space for small group work. And I really thought that was a neat idea. This is our new reference desk. You guys wondered when that picture was going to show up. This is our new reference desk, except now it has a sign on top of it that says reference. And I do see students using it more. We were behind a big, tall desk area for a while, and it just seemed like it prohibited those conversations. But I think it's working out really well. Here's some pictures of other Learning Commons areas that I went and found. Have any of you been to the K-State Library? They've got some of these booths. And it's really nice. They're very popular areas for them to study. That's just one idea. And I liked this one because it reminded me of all of our pillars and ways that maybe those could be used to create spaces. And this one I shared because that's where I used to work. And I really like the way that the TV there is kind of down, or the monitor rather is down, and they can hook their computers into it and talk and discuss. There's also outlets in the middle of those tables. You can kind of see it. That's actually the Learning Commons type area for the Teacher Ed and Technology department. Group study rooms that aren't completely shut off, that maybe have glass on one or two sides, which is really nice because if you've ever been in one of our really small study rooms, it can feel kind of claustrophobic. And here's another idea for, we need to think of comfortable group learning spaces that not only promote collaboration, but also promote discussing ideas, but you can still show your computer screen up there if you're all working on a presentation or on a project, or even if you're just trying to discuss an idea. Because otherwise, you know, you've got somebody on their phone pulling up the URL and showing it. A lot easier to do this way. If they had an Apple TV hooked up to them, you could take your iPhone, show it right up onto the screen without any cords. So, number 6 of what in the world does Cynthia do? Now, the last few are things that I actually have been doing before we move furniture around and things, and because of my particular specialization. This is actually in Mary Meckenstock's children's literature class. I went down and talked to them about how iPads can be used with young children. My background was in teaching early childhood, and I taught that for 16 years, and now I've taught in the college arena for almost 16 years. So I like to talk about, and I'm not one of these people that talks about technology is the only way to go. I also tempered it with there has to be limits on the time, but they are doing some really great things with literacy with the iPads. But other things that I can do in the classroom, I've gone into business classrooms and talked with them about creating videos to use for marketing. They know all the marketing piece, and their professor talks about all of that. I just go in and discuss how to put it all together into a video. And I talk about copyright. And then I come in usually when it's time for grading just as one voice, but not always. Then the other part that makes it really nice for professors is a lot of times the reason they don't use the technology in the classroom is because they don't feel they know it well enough to provide the support after they give the assignment. Well, students can come in to me, and I can to our one-stop students, and we can help them with that. I help a lot of students with video editing after they've been given, and I'll help them even if I didn't go into their classroom. I've also helped with things like VoiceThread, you can see on the handout, I've gone in and talked about how to give a good presentation. I've talked about, well, it's all on here. So I gotta look at it because right now. VoiceThread, Blackboard, not the stuff where I need to log in, but just things like I can't get my assignment, I can't turn in my assignment. Bring it in, we'll figure it out together. Is it because I'm a Blackboard expert? No. But it's just I do have a lot of experience in figuring out why things won't work. Other things that, and atomic learning. In fact, I just showed one of our librarians this morning. If you go into Blackboard, Ahmed has made it very, very nice. You can just scroll down on the left and there's a link to atomic learning and you have all the tutorials. Jeff is learning SPSS and sure enough there's tutorials in there. Really helps if you're trying to teach with technology. Basic Mac support. I think you'll find on our campus that there's a lot of people that have Macs, but there's not a lot of support for them. It's gotten much, much better. But as far as the applications, I've been using Macs since the late 90s. So I really welcome Mac questions, and I troubleshoot both Macs and PCs. But if a lot of people, if they just have their Mac and they want somebody that doesn't look at them like they're bringing in some kind of an odd piece of equipment they've never seen before, you can stop by. I don't do things like open them up and mess with them, but I will help you with software stuff to see if we can get it working better. All right, classroom, and if you need a workshop for a group of students, if you have just a few students and they're going to be given a group presentation, tell them to get a hold of me. We can work together and brainstorm ideas or brainstorm whatever they want or need and what kind of technology they might need to do that. The one-stop area with Tom Lippert has equipment checkout and supplies. So not only do we provide that support as far as how to use the technology and the equipment, but we have equipment that you can actually check out. And our students will help you with how to learn how to use that equipment. So that's another thing that as a faculty member, if you're saying, well, I don't want to have them go out and take a video because they don't have a video camera, we can show them how to take really good video with their phones. We also have camcorders that they can check out with tripods. Number 4. Now, obviously, this is not someone practicing a presentation, but it was the best thing I had. This is actually our dean talking at the beginning of the year, I believe. It could have been actually when she applied, I can't remember. But I've had a lot of students I work with, I go into the classroom, I'll work with them on how to give a good presentation. And then they'll come in and they'll say, would you take a look at it? And you can come in and practice your presentation in front of me. I'm not going to grade you on what the content is because that's not my area, but I can give you tips. Like let's say you're giving a presentation and you're saying and I remember once a fellow grad student of mine, I listened to her give her speech and I don't remember how many we all counted, and she wasn't aware of it. So it's really great when you can have a non-threatening person listen to your presentation and kind of get that out of the way. I also talk to kids a lot about rehearsing, because if you don't, you're reading the slides. Nobody wants to hear you read the slides. I used to feel kind of insulted when I would have a professor that just read the slides to me. This is a student. I help with multimedia creation, and we have the equipment, and I help with the tech support. This young lady is preparing her professional video for getting into the teacher education program. And what they usually do is they'll call me up, they'll write out their own script, they'll come back with me, I'll talk to them about how to talk to the camera and how to slow down, because they always think they've got way more than 2 minutes and then they've got 1 minute and 20 seconds. So I usually, block out an hour for it. It doesn't take that long usually, but it works out really well. And then we go in together and we edit it. And then it's done, they can upload it to YouTube and they're all set, ready to go. And since I have taught teacher education for many years, I kind of know what kinds of things, if they need to add things, I can say, well, have you worked in summer camps? Have you had experience with groups of kids before, and how did it work? Number 2, one-to-one ed tech support and training. That's me. Those aren't me. Those are my former students. But if they want to learn something, let's say you really want to learn iMovie, but you're not good at just watching videos to learn it. Make an appointment or 2 appointments or 6 appointments with me. We'll sit down and learn it. Usually works best if you're working on a project, but you don't have to be. And the number 1 thing that you may or may not know about the Learning Commons is cheaper coffee than Starbucks. I should probably explain this picture. We were doing a quick kind of informal survey, and our hook was, we must ask you a question. So one day a bunch of us one Friday put on mustaches and took pictures. But it was a lot of fun. And here and on the handouts you have is my contact information. Do you have any questions for where we're going or suggestions? Yes?
Do you offer assistance to just students or to faculty and staff?
I've helped faculty and staff before. I helped a faculty member from out at HHP who was actually working on a family video, but she had a lot of cell phone videos that she had to convert before she could bring them into Movie Maker. So yeah, I've worked with faculty as well. CTEL does all the workshops and things, but if you need some one-to-one, I can usually help. Yeah.
In the equipment that you can check out, do you have tripods for phone video?
I have a few. We have a few of them. I think that's something maybe we need to look into getting more of, because I would like to have some workshops on iPhone photography and videography, because our cameras in there are much better than most that we get to check out. And with a few tweaks, and if you really learn the techniques, you can shoot a really nice video on it. In fact, I even watched one tutorial that said to take your phone and just tape it or put rubber bands around it to a piece of wood, because that's easier to hold still. Who knew? The selfie stick also helps a little bit. That's kind of a tripod in a way, but yes, I do have a few tripods. Any other questions? VoiceThread's a fun one. Most of my work with VoiceThread's been with Chinese and Korean students and helping them with language learning. And it works really well because we talk about how we get a picture in there and then they can respond with their voices. And we found, they were the ones that figured this out, that it works even better if you use your cell phone to record. They just call in a number and then they talk and it comes into the VoiceThread that their classmates can hear. So it works out really well. Anything else? So be watching for changes around the furniture and everything. I'm sure we'll have to have some professional advice, but creating more informal learning spaces for students and working on more partnerships with the university, because that's what really makes a learning commons a learning commons. Thank you.